Good morning, my friends. Hope everyone's doing well out there. I wanted to put this video together. I'm going to save this video so that we can show it more. But I wanted to just do it live just in case anyone wants to hop in and say stuff. But the goal of this video is to walk you through the outline of the Jett Online program and what all is, what is it? What's in there? So when you gain access to the Facebook page, it's a private Facebook group. Okay, so you pay your registration fee. That's a monthly subscription fee. When you pay that, you gain access to the group, and that will put you in kind of a community of other people that are trying to move. So there's an amazing community aspect to the program, which is starting to take off, where other people that are participating can post what they're going through. You can ask questions directly to me. I feel like there's not a lot of online programs out there for this price point where you're going to get direct access to the content creator. So you get access directly to me as a coach. Any questions you have on the movements themselves, any needs that you find that you aren't finding a way to deal with, you can express those concerns there, and then that allows me to continue to grow the program in different directions and access benefits for more people in different situations. So one of the cool things there's discussion boards. You can create chat rooms, and you can ask questions directly on each instructional video as well. So that's kind of the initial, once you get on the page. What's kind of the bread and butter of the page is the guide section. And so under the guide section, you click on that, and then there's it's set up for learning. So they're learning guides. So it's not just here's your workout for the day. What's up, Crystal? It's not just your workout for the day. It's literally instructional videos of all the movements. Okay, so the goal here is to learn the movements. It's not to just mindlessly go through a workout. Okay, if you want to have someone just tell you what to do and walk you through it and have a timer set and you just turn your brain off and go for it, this is not the program for you. Okay, this program is for people that want to learn about their body and get in tune with their body. Okay, so I'm trying to make that as accessible as possible, so you don't have to take an anatomy physiology class or get a degree to understand enough about your body to really move it well. The goal is to perform the movements, but be paying attention and feeling, okay, this is tight on this side, but loose on the other. I can rotate this way very well, but not this direction. So the instructional videos, it's set up where you're going to work your way through the instructional videos. Okay, perform the movements that you can. Okay, and then stop when you can't. Okay, so they're all set up in progressions. So that basically means there's a floor level of that movement where pretty much anyone should be able to do at least that base level. And if you can't do it well, you practice at that base level before you move on up the ladder. So for example, in the first actual guide where there's going to be exercises is the neutral position guide. So when you get into that guide, you're going to be working on bracing your core, joint stacking. And if those things are difficult for you, then you would just continue to practice those things. Okay, where for somebody that might be super basic and they move right through that after watching those videos once, but that might not be for everyone. You'd be surprised. For me, when I really started diving into joint stacking and core bracing in a much deeper fashion, I found that even as an athlete, I needed to spend a lot more time developing those things. So it's not as easy as it seems, but that's kind of an example of what I mean by a progression is base level, and then there's things that you can stack on top of that. And ultimately, the whole entire program is set up in that progression model of here's where you're at, and then trying to stack your way up. Okay, so yeah, they're set up in guides, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go through each guide that we have right now. Okay, so under each guide, so the guide is basically just a heading. Here's what kind of stuff we're going to be working on in this section. Okay, within the guide, there's multiple videos of each exercise that's going to help that overall topic. Okay, So when you open it up and you dive into the guides first, the first thing you're going to see is getting started. These are going to be kind of blackboard or whiteboard videos of me explaining helpful concepts. Here's the reasons why we do the things we do. Here's how we do them, and some helpful things that will kind of tie into the movements themselves. A good example of that is talking about pendulum swings. A lot of times in exercise programs, you're taught to be very rigid and hold your posture as you're doing, kind of a linear movement. In Jett Movement Academy, we're moving, right? Movement is the key. So we're actually trying to figure out how to create and control momentum and use it to our advantage. So you got to understand pendulums. So in that getting started section, or underneath that getting started guide, we'll kind of explain those things as we get started. So it's just helpful things to know before you dive into actually doing the workouts to make sure that you're doing them, safely. Okay. The second guide is going to be the neutral position guide. Okay. So just getting your body to a neutral joint stacking position. It's really important to understand that the human body, if you break it down into the cells, cells are very reliant on the shape of themselves to perform the task that they're supposed to perform. So on a cellular level, okay, if you change the shape of a cell, it will perform differently. It might even perform a completely different task. So you need your cells to be a certain shape in order to do the things you want. And that's what happens when our bodies start to break down, is various stresses change the shape of our cells and cause them to either die or not perform the way that we want. So when it comes to our body as a one giant organism, we want to look at it the same way. Okay, alignment is key. So we're going to want to align ourselves, and when we do, our body is happier that way, and it can perform the other tasks a lot better. So it's kind of like a chicken or the egg type of situation where do we develop great alignment and then we can do all these movements, or do we do all these movements and then we can create proper alignment? So they work hand in hand. So the neutral position guide is going to basically be a starting template. This is what we're trying to obtain. Try to work at those with just the cues and work through those things. Okay, so we spend a week on that, and then you can move on to the second guide, which is the hip hinging guide. And hip hinging is, there's debates on the importance of hip hinging. So the way I look at it is as a singular movement, just in and of itself, just hinging at your hips. Okay, here's your hips, legs, upper body. Just being able to hinge at your hips is not all that valuable in terms of just that movement by itself. The true benefit of hip hinging comes with what that does for the tissues surrounding that point of hinging. So our quads, our hamstrings, our glutes all tie into our hips from the bottom, and then all of this core musculature in our back and our spine and all of that ties into our hips from the top. So it's this meeting point of all these major tissues and stuff like that. So if any of those tissues aren't happy, you're not going to be able to hinge very well. Okay, so it's not that we want to hinge, it's that we want to hinge so that we can keep all of these tissues happy. Does that make sense? Okay, so the hinge is super important for that reason, more than, you might see like, okay, when you bend over to lift something, you need to do it this way. I agree with that to a certain extent, but you can develop a resiliency to pick things up in whatever posture or alignment you really want, as long as you develop that capacity. Okay, so hip hinging, it's not that we want to be world-class deadlifters and really, really good at the hip hinge. It's more about creating the proper tension and function in those tissues around the pelvis. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on there. We want to keep it happy. Okay, and then the next one is the split stance. Okay, so the split stance is where we start to open ourselves up to another level of athleticism. Okay, so if you look at, there's getting started as number one, but then the next three guides, so neutral, hip hinge, and split stance, those are what I consider movement foundations. Okay, so if you look at those three stages of this program, okay, those are going to be your foundational movement practice. That is all you really need to be doing as a human being is those 3 stages. Okay, you don't need to go farther than that if you don't have goals that require that, basically. So to have a happy, healthy body that just kind of can get you through daily life, those first 3 are going to be kind of your go-tos. That's where you want to live. Okay, so when I set up the program, and I have an outline as well that you'll see on underneath the file section inside the page. When you look at that I have a weekly schedule of here's the things you need to do every day for the week, right? You can stay in that group of 3 as long as you want. As long as your body feels good and you're doing the things that you want, you can pretty much live in those 3, okay? If you have dysfunctions or problems that go beyond that, then you might start to dive into the next few, okay? But those 3 guides are really where you're going to want to spend most of your time getting set. They're also, like I said, foundations for all the other stuff. Okay, so we have to master those first 3 things, or the rest of the program will be a lot more challenging. Okay, and it might not even work if you don't do those first 3. Okay, so when it comes to doing some of the movements, you need to be able to brace your spine and your core and get to a neutral position. You need to be able to hinge at your hips, and then you need to be able to get in the split stance very effectively. And it's way more complicated than it sounds. It's basically a split bipedal stance, but I still have people that have been with me for a year that are still struggling with the idea of how important the split stance actually is. It gets overlooked because it's such a simple thing. So if you practice it, believe in it, then it will start to make all these other things go a lot more smooth. Okay. After you get through the foundational guides, then I have functional hip basics and functional shoulder basics, which are kind of in between those movement foundations and then athletic performance. So they can kind of bridge that gap. They can also enhance those foundational movements as well if you're performing those and getting into those 2 guides too. So when we look at the hips, like I said when I was talking about the hinge, if your hips aren't functioning smoothly and they're not doing well, and you have maybe one side's tighter than the other and you're getting like a twisting, or you're just restricted, you can't do high knees, you can't run, your low back's getting you, then you need to dive into those hip specifics and kind of figure those things out. And so the goal when you're looking at the functional hip basics is to listen to your body. Okay, so we have these intricate sets and groups of muscles around our legs and our hips. And it's very, very easy to have a bad habit that causes one side to be restricted more than the other. And it's important to understand that about yourself and notice those differences so that you can work on the side that's stickier, right? Or more, held back. So when you get into functional hip basics, it's really, yes, they're exercises. Yes, you can increase the volume, you can increase the intensity, you can add weight to a lot of them, but it's more about moving your body and getting in tune with your body and learning about what's going on. Okay. Same with the functional shoulders. Okay. Shoulders can be a real pain in the butt. A lot of people have a tough time going up over their head and extending their arms, okay, without extending through their spine or whatever. So shoulders are kind of a tricky one. And they can lead to a lot of other problems, and not just how we use our arms, but the more that I get into this kind of rounded or depressed shoulder position, the more it starts to weigh on the rest of me, and it can attack your spine, it can attack your hips and cause all these other problems. So when we look at shoulders, it's more for me, obviously I'm a throwing athlete. I like to climb and do all those things. So for me, there is a performance aspect. I want my shoulders to function well so that I can do these other tasks. But for the average person, okay, that doesn't have all of these, higher level needs in their shoulders, it's more about combating the dysfunctions of everyday life. Okay, so I got a keyboard in front of me right now. Okay, it's below my eye level and it's out in front. So I got to put my arms out in front and I got to be looking down. So we constantly are doing that, and we're just pulling our spine, okay? We're constantly pulling our spine this way, Okay, and then my head becomes this weight that pulls me into those positions as well. So the goal with the shoulder basics is to open ourselves up in our chest and shoulders, increase the strength of our upper back, align our spine so that we can combat these things, right? Because the longer we spend in these positions down here, the more our tissue starts to accommodate those bad positions and we get locked into it. It breaks my heart when I see people that are stuck in that severe flexion, maybe even like a hump on their back up towards the shoulders. And it's not like something that just happens overnight. It's something that gradually over time just kind of becomes worse and worse until one day you wake up and you're like, "Ugh." So it's something that we just need to be fluid with. We need to be able to open up and have those abilities so that it keeps our spine happy. Okay, which is the next guide, which is the spinal mobility guide, which is a place that you can work specifically on keeping your spine happy. One of my favorite quotes, I believe it's a Chinese proverb, is "You're only as old as your spine," which is the truth. I've seen younger people with ragged spine that can't do anything and they have a low quality of life, and I've seen elderly folks who have a great spine and they're still out walking, doing their daily hobbies that they enjoy, and they're playing with their grandkids and doing all these fun things. So when it comes to our spine, we need to be able to solidify it and use it as one single unit for leverage. Okay, but we also need to be able to rotate it. We also need to be able to create kind of those aquatic flowing movements as well. It makes a lot of other processes of our body happy. And again, I don't want to have to dive into too much of the anatomy of physiology, but when it comes down to it, the more we are able to control our spine and go from stability to mobility with it, it tends to make our entire structure that much more happy. Circulation wise, nerve wise, just cognitive function, everything can kind of be reliant on how our spine is lined up. Okay. And so now from there on, we're going to get into more athletic performance or more problem solving specifics. Okay. So the next step, the next guide is the plyo progressions. So plyometrics is explosive movements. So, for a lot of people, not something that we're really concerned with. So you don't need to go into that progression. A lot of people don't like jumping, or their body has some kind of, adverse reaction to jumping. Lots of different reasons, right? So you don't have to go into the plyometric progressions, but understand that the base levels of those are something that you can still do. So there's multiple steps that will lead up to then leaving the ground. So we're trying to really make it accessible to start at the plyometric progression step 1 and work your way through it, and you might be surprised as to what you can get to. Okay. So yeah, it has a list of things that will kind of set you up before actual jumping that will lead you into the ability to then jump, and then you can take it as far as you want to go from there. So it's kind of an athletic performance level, Then we've got the core level 2, which is just adding on to those core strengthening exercises that you're going to see in the neutral position phase, because the more resilient you are in your core, the better. It helps prevent a lot of injuries, and it can help you just do a lot of fun things. The other thing is, I know that people enjoy looking good in the midsection, right? So it's another set of things that can kind of help tighten you up there, and actually do it functionally and provide strength and accessibility to movements from there. It's not about just looking good, right? You can do a bajillion crunches. If you want a 6-pack, you already got one. It's just maybe under some fat, maybe under some skin. It's there, okay? If you want those muscles to be more defined, you can do a billion crunches. But have fun with that. It's boring, and it's probably going to hurt your back at some point, and it's going to limit your ability to rotate. So there's other ways to train your core that are actually useful, that can still provide, strong muscles there. And then if you eliminate body fat, probably cut out most of your favorite foods that you love and beverages, then yeah, you can have a 6-pack if that's what you want. Okay, next is one of my favorite guides, which is dynamic strength training. So I am very, very interested as an athlete and as a coach of athletes. I'm very interested in strength training that is usable on the field, that replicates movements we're going to do, that trains movement patterns we're going to use, and isn't just completely linear strength. There's a time and place for linear strength. It's definitely got its advantages and it's got its helpful things. There's tons of different ways to train your body for some strength, and I love it. But I like the dynamic stuff because I think it translates to athleticism a lot more directly by training movement patterns that are going to be seen in your sport or out in the real world, climbing and hiking and boating and all these different things that people enjoy doing. The dynamic strength training is going to apply directly to them. And the cool thing there is we keep it to pretty light weights with these movements. So when we're looking at equipment needs for this program, the dynamic strength training is where you start to see that's the only one I think off the top of my head that actually requires dumbbells and kettlebells or other things like that. So you can do so much of this program without using any weights or using any form of equipment really. Okay. And then I want to start to do more of this. I haven't really posted much stuff on this yet, but this is a place where the program will grow. Is the healthy knees and healthy feet guides. I want to start to get into specific lists for problems that people have. If this is a problem with your body, here's a place to see the exercises that are aimed specifically at those problems, right? So if you're short of doctor and PT, okay, obviously those are a different scope of practice. They're at a different level. But if it's just nagging daily pains or weakness, or you want performance to increase in certain areas, this is going to be a good place to look at from there. And, what you might find is that some of this stuff might cross over with PT. I've heard lots of my clients talk about like, oh, my physical therapist said that these things that you gave me are actually exactly what I should be doing. Or, I told my PT that I was doing these things and they're actually helping. So you can kind of get wishy-washy with the line being, drawing the line on what's physical therapy, what's, strength training or personal training or whatever. So it kind of blurs the lines. I'm making sure that, on my end, if you've had an injury and you've seen a doctor about the injury and they've referred you to physical therapy, you need to be cleared on that before you jump into any fitness program. Okay. But a lot of the things will cross over or pick up where the PT left off and kind of continue to enhance those things. So that's kind of the future of the program, is to start to build on, people don't pay attention to their feet enough. So here's a section about what you can do with your feet to create a better base for yourself and eliminate some foot pain. Knees is a big one. Bad knees was like a hereditary thing in my family, and I was really scared as a young athlete that was going to be what derailed me from my baseball career. But luckily, I've learned a lot of stuff over the years about trying to keep those knees healthy, and it's gotten even better. In the last 6 months, I've gotten better with that protocol too. So that's on there. So those are the guides. That's a walkthrough, kind of a little more in depth of what you're going to see once you're inside that Facebook group. And that's cool. That's what's cool about it, is on Facebook, it's super interactive. You can leave comments and questions right directly underneath the videos. Once I answer them on there, then they're there too. So if other people have asked the same questions, you can see it. I know a lot of people hesitate to ask questions because they don't want to look dumb. But ask questions. Message me. Right now, we're at about 22 members, so it's super manageable for me to be able to hop on and give a lot more specific direction and adjust the program for what people need. So feel free. What else? Oh, yeah, it's on sale right now. So for the rest of the month, through the 31st, we're going 50% off with Jett Online subscription. So you can prepay for as many months as you want, up to a full year at that 50% off. Or you can use that as your introductory, first month, and just, it cuts the risk a little bit to make sure that you actually enjoy it and are getting benefit out of the program before you pay that full price. So it's usually $34.99 per month for the subscription. And so right now it's on sale, 50% off, which brings it to, I think it was $19.01 with tax. So under $20 for your first month, or as many months as you want to prepay for. So yeah, take advantage of that. It's good through the 31st to kick off spring. So I hope that is helpful to get you kind of answers you might need about what the program offers and what it's all about. And yeah, we hope to see you moving and enjoying this beautiful weather and summer that's about to happen. Keep moving. Home, babe.